Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry. I'm a high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video. All right, I'm getting requests to cover a channel favorite that just uploaded from BlueJay. And this video is how to worship like an ancient Egyptian. Oh, this is great. I've been covering so much more modern stuff. Gotta get back to my roots. I love ancient history. And I love BlueJay. They're super funny and they tell great stories. All right, the original video link is down below. Make sure you're supporting them. Let's get started.
This video is sponsored by Total War Pharaoh. Buy it if you love me. Ah, youth. It's a time many of us look back at fondly. Jumping in moon shoes to break new heights and ankles. Getting expired gumballs at a strip mall Mexican restaurant. Questioning the fabrics of existence and the thin veil that separates that of reality and the surrealistic void of primordial despair while watching Courage the Cowardly Dog. Right, wow. Good times. But ironically, it's these very youngsters who are currently enjoying the responsibility-free era of youth who are often the most eager to be rid of it. But until they can enter the adult world, they tend to seek some kind of identity to latch on to. Many choose to be jocks. Too many choose to be horse girls. And some of us find themselves with an addiction to fiction ancient Egyptian religion, such as our good friend Alex here. What? I'm not into Egyptian mythology. Oops, that's not your line. Right, gee willikers, do I love me some Egyptian deities? That you do, Alex. But even an Egyptomaniac like you can have gaps in your pantheon knowledge. Sure. So today, we're gonna cover some of the more zany aspects of Egyptian mythology, while also teaching you, in the modern era, how to worship like an ancient Egyptian.
All right, it's almost impossible to think a religion could, go for a couple thousand years, 3,000 years or whatever in ancient Egyptian history and not have it change. I know some of the stories of like gods changing, multiple like kind of like combining into one god worship. We'll let them do the story there, but Egyptian mythology is fascinating. All right, right on. Let's go, BlueJay. Go, BlueJay. It was hard reading about so many gods.
Now, Alex, before we get started, we're just going to need one blood sacrifice. What is that? Sea people, Alex, here to invade the Egyptian lands. But I thought the water tribe was a peaceful folk. While I appreciate you helping me hit my quota for pop culture references, Alex, I'm talking about the sea peoples who brought about the Bronze Age collapse and the destruction of the old powers. It remains a mystery to historians as to what the nationality of these fabled warriors was. Oh, no way. What? Who are they? No time. They're heading this way. Luckily, I've got a few thousand slave volunteer fighters ready to defend them off.
You know what's crazy is that's kind of how it was. You know how he's like, wait, who are they? Oh, I don't have time to determine. I got to go. That's basically what happened to the Egyptians, New Kingdom there. The destruction that came from these sea people, again, happened so quick. It barely even entered the record. Basically, it was just like, from Egypt was like, we're being invaded, and then like it's over, and then the writing ends, and it didn't happen slow enough that it like could be recorded and like interpreted. That's why it's been such a big mystery, because a lot of writing systems also collapsed from the Bronze Age collapse around 1000 BC or so. We still need to find out. Who do you think they were, by the way? Put a comment down below.
Okay, Alex, you'll need to command them. Hammer and anvil, you got this. But what are you talking about? Okay, don't worry, Alex. We can make you into a brilliant Bronze Age general with Total War Pharaoh. The Total War franchise is taking us to Egypt in Total War Pharaoh, the bestest and bronzest Bronze Age strategy game to date. If you've ever touched a gaming PC or been on a history subreddit, chances are you've heard of the Total War games. They combine turn-based strategy, Pharaoh, elements like armor degradation.
I just finished. I streamed a bit of it and just finished Assassin's Creed Mirage. Really enjoyed that one. That was a lot of fun. So I need a new game now. I need a new game to play.
Don't just take my... So use my... No, I sent ya. But history, meaning before our moist sacks of folded tissue we call a brain figured out how to rub a stick on the wall. With all that time, you can really imagine the amount of layers the Egyptians were able to pack into their religion. So they didn't just have one boring god, but a plethora of them. Jesus Christ.
And usually when you have pantheons this big too, your religion, your beliefs is probably a combination of many different beliefs from many different people. And as your civilization grows and incorporates new people and especially becomes imperial, you're going to have that kind of thing. That's why, like in Hinduism, for example, is so diverse, because it covered the belief systems of so many different people that there becomes this almost like innumerable amount of gods. But yeah, it's usually, often historically how this happens.
Christ, not in this video, buddy. And those were just the major gods. That's not even taking into account the minor ones.
The lame ones.
Or the more minor ones. or the Among Us one. Now, perhaps the first question on your mind is how could some dude on the internet without a formal degree in the fields of mythology, theology, or even anthropology be qualified and able to accurately simplify a religion that existed for over 3,500 years and contains over 2,000 deities?
Jeez.
Let's start off with some...
It does not even come close to Hinduism, though, right?
Simple,
they have potentially millions. It's
the creation of the entire universe. We're all familiar with the Abrahamic version of events, where in the beginning, there was pretty much just nothing until God decided to plaster up some LEDs. Ancient Egyptians, on the other hand, had a few different creation stories, each of which I consider to be a bit more flavorful. As one story goes, in the beginning, there was nothing but a chaotic, primordial cosmic ocean until a pyramid called Ben emerged from the abyss with a lotus flower that blossomed into the sun god Ra. Which sounds like something out of a King Gizzard music video, and also undoubtedly terrified any space turtles that happen to be in the area. Hey Nigel, how was Leah's first day of abyssal school? She was a little nervous getting on the celestial bus, but she powered through like a champ. Little rascal's still down there now, but I'm sure she's having a great time. Now, while being the first and only thing in the universe is cool and all, it also really limited the amount of stuff there was to do. But hey, this is a god after all. So
Ra's also a god that changed forms during time, because he has this head of a bird, and then he'll have the sun. And it actually used to be separate. Like, they had God Amun, I believe, was god of the sky, right? And then Ra was god of the sun. And eventually that combined to Amun-Ra, a deity that would cover both things. So that's just an example there. That's what you see with the sun.
So if anyone can find a way to keep themselves entertained, it's him. Well, time to go beat the bishop. And from his wow, you're not gonna make this episode easy, are you? Through making the bald man cry, the twins Shu and Tefnut were born. After this, Ra started to cry, which I'm sure many of you gents can relate to, and humanity was created from his sweat and tears, and thank God the fluid stopped there. Tefnut and Shu then had offspring themselves, and with who you might ask? Well, right now we're up to 3 existing things, and one of them tends to be preoccupied in his room, so do the math. They gave birth to the god of the earth, Geb, which was 1 letter off from making my day, and the sky goddess Nut, whose name really foreshadows the theme of Egyptian mythology. These 2 siblings then had kids, with who, again, do the math. Now we're really starting to rack up a big list of major deities with a shocking amount of shared genetics. So
you can see the combination, or the mix of anthropomorphized gods and stuff, where you have God that also will take the shape of something else. You see these ones that have an animal head. I told you about the bird one, and then is it a hawk or whatever that's Ra? I forget which animal that's supposed to be, but Tefnut. What's that, like a lion, maybe? Lioness, and then Set. He's got the big old, is that the jackal face?
So to bring a tear to any British monarch.
I like how Geb just has a bird on his head, just seagull on his head.
But hey now, ladies with a shocking amount of shared genetics that would bring a tear to any British monarch's eye. But hey now, you're a teenager with an obsession. That means you've got to be quirky and different, and knowing just the most well-known aspects of Egyptian mythology won't cut it when you try to flex on online forums. So let's do a little speed run on some of the major gods and how to worship them so we can get to the fun stuff. At the top, we have the aforementioned Ra, but depending on the place and time, he could be named Re, or Khepri, or Atum, or Amun, or if you place a fusion card, Amun-Ra, or Atum-Ra. Are they the same god? Yes. But are they different gods? Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Questions are for the weak, Alex. Just smile and build some triangles. Despite what you think, this dude dripped out with a feather is not Johnny Depp, but...
So yeah, it was god of the sky, god of the sun. Those used to be 2 separate beings, Amun and Ra, or Re. And then eventually, became combined to be worshipped as one deity that I guess controls both.
In fact, Shu, the god of light and warm air. He was responsible for holding up the entire sky, so Egyptians thought clouds were his bones, whereas today, we now know they're actually chemtrails. He was worshipped through stuff like prayers and hymns, but since the bar is just hot air and cool feathers, you can just go to Burning Man. Tefnut is the goddess of moisture, which is just a weird way to put it. She's interesting because her name could be onomatopoeia for the sound of spitting, with the translation itself potentially just being she who spits. Disgusting. Shit. Punish the blasphemer! The Egyptians weren't even subtle about it either. In some temples, her name can be found written on the walls as just a pair of spitting lips. As such, you already inadvertently worship her today when you use any of these emojis or when you rage quit a Call of Duty match. For as the ancient proverbs go, spitters are quitters. Geb, god of the earth, was a real chill dude and was often just depicted lounging around. Looks like he's got himself a little romance going on. Who's that? His sister, Alex. Did you really have to ask?
That's a wild image. recreated from. I wonder where these hieroglyphics kind of are. Looks very different. Where's the source of this one? Does not look like something you see.
Anyway, it was said that earthquakes were caused by the tremendous power evoked by Geb's laughter. Hello, Heliopolis. How we doing tonight?
So funny it caused earthquakes.
Wow, what a crowd, what a crowd. We even got some Greeks here. Crazy you guys found the time between naming every city after your teenage king. Let's see.
Alexandria.
What's up, man? What's the problem? Hey, Geb, what are you doing here? Heard you're a funny man. Came for the jokes. Let's hear one. Are you sure? Are you sure you want crops this year? Sit down. Okay. So there are some who say there aren't any.
Can I say I love BlueJay's increasingly good skill at comedic timing. It's such a skill. That's one you can write maybe in your script, but to perform it and make it work is another level.
Okay. So there are some who say there aren't any crocodiles in Egypt, but I think they're in denial. Denial.
Oh no!
Like the river. Oh, that was good. That was good. Well, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go catch a show in Fukushima. Set was the god of chaos and had the body of a man and the head of some animal that no one's been able to figure out. It's called the Set animal, and theories range from dogs to aardvarks to even giraffes and pigs, which, no, he was jealous of his brother Osiris, who wore the big boy sandals as ruler of Egypt. So, in his natural bad boy chaotic fashion, he put together a little ruse for his brother. Hey, Osiris, buddy, come here. Listen, man. We've been having this contest. I'll tell him. We've been having this contest to see if anyone can fit into this super cool coffin. And so far, no one's been able to win, dude. No one's been able to win. But I'm saying, my boy Osiris here, he knows how to fit into things real good. I know about you and my sister, but anyway, why don't you give it a shot, man? I know you could do it. Set tricked Osiris at a party and trapped him in a coffin, threw it in the Nile, and returned days later in a rage to cut up his dead body into a bunch of little pieces and spread them throughout Egypt. And then he became the king. Hey guys, so Osiris is feeling a little under the weather, so I'm gonna be pharaoh now. Oh, but I guess he'll be back soon then? Hey, listen, there's this super cool coffin. Isis was the goddess of...
I was gonna say in some of these mythologies, especially with like polytheistic beliefs, they say that a lot of these gods, especially like heroic type gods and stuff like that, might have been kings of the past, right? Of these cultures, especially ones that may have existed like pre-writing, and then a mythology develops through generations about with their accomplishments, and their accomplishments just become greater and greater and greater. So they basically come like godlike status. I know it's a prevailing theory with kind of the Greek pantheon, because the Greeks, you know, they believe the gods the Mycenaeans did, which is like the pre-Greeks, right? And even before those writing systems, those came through and they were told orally. But yeah, someone like Zeus or something, for example, could have been like a famous king at some time. And then over time, as those stories get embellished, they become like godlike status.
Of magic and sister wife of Osiris. After Set cut up her boy toy, she figured it probably wasn't good PR to have her king husband's body parts scattered across the country like some morbid game of geocacher, so she set off to collect the pieces. After a traumatizing and quite literal scavenger hunt, she was able to find every piece, except for one. Can you guess what it was, Alex? Assuming from the love theme, his heart?
His little obelisk?
No, this is Egyptian mythology, not Shakespeare. She was missing his cock. The divine member had been swallowed by a fish, probably turning into
his personal obelisk
kaiju. So she whipped up a magic one. The divine member had been swallowed by a fish, probably turning it into a kaiju. So she whipped up a magic one so that she could conceive their future son Horus. And I'd just like to point out that before we've had a single non-incestuous relationship, we're already throwing in fourth base with dead brother.
Oh, by the way, the pharaohs were all about that. Like King Tut, for example, his parents were related.
Weird for you? Well, in another version, Isis breathes life into his body so she can get knocked up in bird form. Confused how that works? Not to worry. They left us a picture for reference. And while you could, I wouldn't recommend worshipping her today, as joining something called the Cult of Isis would send a very different message these days. In the beginning, Osiris became the first pharaoh of Egypt to give humanity direction and guidance after noticing how uncivilized they were. Honey, have you seen humanity lately? Nah, they're just having fun. No, not them. Them. Scarab, so good. Gang, 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 gang. Yes, my pharaoh. Yes, my pharaoh. After his little dismember adventure, he became the god of the dead and ruled over the underworld, which they called Duat. Egyptians believe Duat to be in the west, where the sun set, which means, contrary to popular belief, they most likely were the first civilization to discover the Americas. What? Otherwise, I have no idea how they knew where New Jersey was. One way Osiris.
That was a big stretch there. I know with the afterlife, they likened it unto kind of like the Nile. The beliefs are interesting, kind of especially for afterlife for the Egyptians. They felt it was a good place because they felt mostly favorable about their gods, especially because things like the Nile, they believe the gods controlled. And the Nile is a very good river when it comes to predictability and predictability of its floods and gentleness of its floods, where natural things that happen, okay, with nature seem to be a very positive thing, and that reflects kindly on the gods. By the way, that's in contrast to Mesopotamian religions, where you have more earthquakes and you have Tigris and Euphrates, which flood horribly, and why there's so many flood stories, tragic flood stories there that can be very destructive. They believe the gods were very angry, capricious, and they saw the afterlife as a grim place. But interesting thing where you can tie geography to religious beliefs.
Horus worshipped was through a yearly public play telling the story of his death, where reenactors, quote, beat their breasts and gash their shoulders until the mutilated remains of the god had been found and rejoined. Jeez. Wow, screams of despair and beating yourself up. Isn't that why you're going to therapy, Alex? Looks like you've got this one taken care of, buddy. Horus is a falcon god, symbol of divine kingship, and an S-tier Smash character. One of the most important Egyptian gods, he's famous for his contendings with Set to reclaim the throne taken from his father. A lot of wild and insane shenanigans took place over this 80-year period of conflict, but one contest definitely stands out. And to tell this story without getting my video removed, we're gonna have to enter the euphemism Colosseum.
All right, what do you got?
Let's say both Set and Horus each had long ships containing men of the sea men, if you will. One night, Set wanted to assert dominance over Horus, so he attempted to seduce his nephew and docked his ship at Horus's port, sending his sea men into Horus's territory. Horus, however, had a closed border policy, so he caught these sea men in his hand and threw them into the Nile. After this, he went to his mom Isis, who helped him coax his own sea men out of his ship, so he could sneak the little guys into some lettuce that Set then ate. Both Set and Horus then went to the gods, who heard Set's claim of dominating Horus by invading him with his sea men. But when he tried to summon them, they answered from the Nile. Horus then claimed his dominance over Set by tricking him into eating his covert sea men. And when he summoned them, they answered from inside Set, proving that Horus had dominated his uncle. Yes, Horus was worshipped in many ways, but to keep it simple, just make sure the next time
I'm gonna comment on that. If you want to try and understand the story, I guess watch it a few times.
You're eating a salad to give an extra squirt of ranch in honor of our Egyptian top G.
I don't think I'll be sharing the real version of that one in my next Egypt lesson.
Anubis, an extra squirt of ranch in honor of our Egyptian top G. Anubis, the god's goodest boy, was the jackal-headed god of mummification in the dead. Like any good pupper, Anubis guided souls to the afterlife in the Hall of Truth. The soul would then recite the negative confessions, where it swore it had not committed certain sins, before weighing its heart on a scale against the feather of truth. Have you sinned against men? I have not. Have you oppressed kinsfolk? I have not. Have you spent over $100 on Destiny 2 DLC? Well, only if you account for inflation. Wait. If they passed, they enjoyed eternal life.
Okay, so going back here, I always thought this was an interesting thing. So like your heart, right, which kind of contains your actions and stuff, is weighed against this feather. I was always like, oh, that seems like such an unfair balance, a heart versus a feather. You know what I mean? Like, how heavy is this feather? You know what I mean? To do it. And then again, if you're not in balance, you don't move on to the duat or whatever, the afterlife. and you get fed to that one guy that I think it's like the face. It's like the, let's see if we can get to him. He has three different parts. Yeah. It's like the crocodile face, like a lion body, and then a hippo in the back. What's that guy's name? Let me know. I forgot his name. But you get fed to him if you're not worthy to pass on. By the way, all this stuff would be kept in books of the dead. One of the most common texts that we find in ancient Egypt are books of the dead, because they are basically like instructions about what someone's supposed to do after they die. And you go through these different processes and say these different words and go through these different trials, whatever, and kind of culminating in this judgment here. But those would be buried with people because they felt you could sort of bring those instructions with you to have a better chance at passing through to that afterlife. And yeah, that was one of the most interesting stories. You get thrown to this guy and eaten. What's his name again?
If they passed, they enjoyed eternal life in the field of reeds. But if not, their heart was thrown on the floor and eaten by the crocodile-headed goddess Ammit, the devourer of the dead, erasing their soul from existence.
Isn't it interesting that it shows you how important the Nile culture and the Nile was, what their afterlife literally mimics what the banks of the Nile, what the Nile River Valley was like with these crops, you know, like wheat. Interesting. It shows you how important that was culturally to them.
Goddess Ammit, the devourer of the dead, erasing their soul from existence. In honor of Anubis, it was common for priests to wear jackal masks during funeral proceedings and mummifications. Okay, let's get this show on the road. Oh, like Anubis. Right. But
you'd be dead at this time.
Don't worry, I do this all the time. Okay, let's get this hard.
It's like a cooler plague man.
Oh, God. What are you?
It's tradition.
But while mummifications are a little hard to come by today, don't you worry, Alex. There are whole conventions dedicated to this kind of worship these days. Okay, this is getting long. Let's see who else we got here. Nephthys was the sister wife of Set and goddess of healing and protection, but also death and decay, just to keep you on your toes. You could hire professional mourners to play the part of her and her sister Isis to hysterically cry and scream at your funeral. So it seems like someone loved you in your life. Even if we both know that's not true. There's Thoth, the ibis-headed god of, you might want to get comfortable, the moon, wisdom, knowledge, writing, hieroglyphics, science, magic, art, and judgment, who is also credited with creating art, writing, the calendar, and controlling space and time. Being a god with his fingers.
He just got all the like things they didn't think of first. There's just, okay, Thoth. You're just all of them, and you get the dumbest looking head of all of them.
More affairs than BlackRock, he was very respected by the Egyptians, who honored the god by sacrificing and mummifying ibises by the millions. There's the moon god Khonshu. He appears in something called the Cannibal Hymn, which is metal as hell, but for more, just go watch Moon Knight. Sekhmet, a solar deity, almost killed all of humanity until she got too drunk drinking red-colored beer that she mistook for some nice, refreshing blood, as one does. Bastet is a cat goddess and the calm version of Sekhmet, whose worship provided the means for the first recorded instance of psychological warfare, which I covered in this video here. So, those were some major gods. How you holding up, Alex? To take the fursuit and the ranch with the Burning Man tickets. Please, can you cry at my wedding? Funeral? Funeral, shit, yes, wait, do you eat my heart? Looks like you've got this down pretty alright, buddy. Let's move on to some of the lesser known rascals.
No, that's Ammit.
Wait, ancient Egyptians.
That's why you need the Book of the Dead. That's literally why you had the Book of the Dead, to give those instructions. And there's a whole industry of them because scribes were so valuable with that, and a lot of people die. And the richer you were, especially if you're a rich person, you had a nice Book of the Dead with you. Look at the one for Ani. I think the Papyrus of Ani is like the best. It's the one I show in class. It's one of the best preserved ones. Ani. It's for I forget what he was, some kind of cleric or something.
Right, buddy. Let's move on to some of the lesser known rascals. Wait. Ancient Egyptians followed what I like to call the 34th Code of the Ancients, or Rule 34 for short. If it exists, there's a god for it. Yeah. Fabrics and clothing? Step aside, Zara. The 26th day of the month? Sure, fuck it. My ex-wife? They've got her covered. Because of this abundance, no matter the problem, the Egyptians had a god to turn to, including the ones of the bedroom variety. Why are you staring at me? Before our gods of today, pharmaceutical companies blessed us with the blue pill, men and also women experiencing fertility problems in the good old days often turned to religion for guidance. And apparently, for the ancient Egyptians, nothing really screamed healthy sex life like a grotesque crouching dwarf. Meet Bes, a demon god of sexuality, fertility, childbirth, humor, protection, and war. Quite the resume. Unlike almost all other Egyptian gods, Bes was shown face on and was depicted as a short and chubby little dwarf man.
How cool he is. It's like a troll or something. I've never heard of this god. What was his name? Dude, I'm like, this guy's cool.
With the face of a gargoyle, a lion's mane, and a tongue that's always sticking out, either because he just did the one chip challenge, or because the gods are just so inbred at this point that it's a miracle he even has one in the first place. Being just a beacon of beauty that he was, cool. People would spend the night in incubation chambers with naked images of Bess and his goddess counterpart, Besset, plastered on the walls to cure their fertility problems. Hey man, do you ever have problems getting a... You know. Say no more, my friend. I've got just the room for getting in the mood, so to speak. Oh, really? Yeah, dude. The walls are just plastered with images, among other stuff. Ew, but I guess that's what I'm looking to be able to do, so okay, sign me up. How's it going in there, buddy?
DeVito.
I don't know, it's not really doing it for me. Are you sure this is the right room? Yeah, dude, it works like a charm on me. Here, let me show you. Wait, no. Bess stood for all things good, and it was believed that if a child was laughing for seemingly no reason, it was because Bess was nearby making funny faces. Kinda sweet until you remember Bess runs around displaying his gargantuan genitals like a hobbit crackhead from Venice Beach. So, Alex, if you want to keep the spirit of Bess alive today, you can always smile at kids from the bushes of your local playground. No, what is that? Oh, that's Aten, a solar deity portrayed as a sun disk. Well, why does it have hands? Why do you have hands?
He was the...
It was kind of rude, Alex.
Monotheistic.
Now look what you've done. Say you're sorry. I'm sorry, Aten. Now say he's a very cool sun god. You're a very cool sun god. Now declare him the one true god and renounce your worship of all other false idols. You're the one true... Wait, what? Aten's biggest claim to fame came during the reign of Akhenaten, who thought the sun...
King Tut's father, right?
Disk was such a dope god that he figured, why bother worshipping all these other wannabes? So he put forth a decree that banned the worship of any god besides our little disk friend. He even went as far as building an entire new capital completely dedicated to the worship of Aten. What in Sun Disk's name is this? Wait, Akhenaten, I can explain. I'm sorry, what part of one god did you not understand, Bayek? It's just, I've been having problems lately. You should have come to me, Bayek. We don't need this pagan garbage. The worship of Aten is the light that shines upon all paths towards restoration. How's it going in there, buddy? I don't know, it's not really doing it for me. It's all about the hands, dude. Here, let me show you. Not again! Scholars.
Yeah, so, okay, it looks like he's gonna finish it, but, you know, it obviously was gonna be a failure when this pharaoh, right, Akhenaten, creates a god out of thin air, basically, and you already had like 2,500 years of polytheistic worship. It was horrible. You know, maybe he was hoping to unify people culturally, but it did the opposite. It was rejected so bad. We'll see if he gets to it, but really the only thing King Tut was known for, because he died so young, he was like 18 or whatever, was he got rid of the monotheistic belief and reverted their religion back to the belief of many of the many gods.
It's argued that this Atenism was the first recorded instance of monotheism in history, with Sigmund Freud himself even claiming Atenism influenced the founding...
Does that line up? I have to see. I guess that would predate like Zoroastrianism, or are we very close to it?
Of Judaism. In history, with Sigmund Freud himself even claiming Atenism influenced the founding of Judaism. I can make an entire video on this guy, but in short, it turns out telling a deeply traditional group of people to drastically alter their identity carved from thousands of years.
When did Zarathustra live? And start that. Let me know. I got to get that timeline accurate with the Akhenaten timeline, because that could change that.
Telling a deeply traditional group of people to drastically alter their identity carved from thousands of years of customs is a challenge that not even a god king can easily pull off. And it offended the Egyptian people so much that after Akhenaten's death, they attempted to erase any trace of his name and family from history. At first, you probably don't bat an eye at this, what with the CCP and Soviet Union having practiced people erasing all the time. But keep in mind, the Egyptians believed the soul was made up of several parts, one of which was called Ren, or a person's name. They believed that so long as a person's name was written down or remembered, it would help preserve their existence in the afterlife. Yeah, so by
in the Book of the Dead, you had your name as like the main character of the story.
Striking any mention of Akhenaten from history, not only were they trying to forget such a crazy attempt to reform culture, but they were trying to destroy a literal piece of his soul. Speaking of the soulless, pharaohs were not just a part of the Egyptian elite, but were themselves considered gods in Egyptian mythology. Because of this, they tried to live up to the theme of their divine connection. You don't mean. That's right, Alex. Egyptian pharaohs were often inbred to emulate the gods as well as to maintain their sacred bloodline.
Yeah, we found that they did DNA testing on King Tut. Yeah, that's why King Tut was famous, not for any policies, even though he undid the monotheism, from what I understand, but because they get grave robbed. And you can never find them. We actually have him DNA and stuff like that. They found a bunch of things. I think he had scoliosis. They did find the, genetic markers for, being inbred. I think the parents, I think they might've been brother and sister. Let's see if he corrects me, or if you guys can.
Egyptian pharaohs were often inbred to emulate the gods as well as to maintain their sacred bloodline. It's all set. Ready for your marriage ceremony, sire? What's he thinking? There's no use guessing. His divine omnipotence is beyond our comprehension.
Because they're like gods.
Does this? Yes. He approves of us. Okay. But what if you're not a pharaoh and just your typical average?
Do you think they really use the effects, the awful genetic, like physical effects and mental effects that could come from being inbred as like godlike characteristics? Anyone know about that one?
Joe. Well, Alex, along with all the aforementioned forms of worship, there are a plethora of intricate traditions and customs that one could follow. But since I'm on page 11 of the script, for the sake of time, just make sure you've got a bunch of amulets on you for every occasion. Hey, boys, do you have a few minutes to talk about serving your country in the Marines? Egyptian mythology. Hilariously wacky, but a little too Game of Thrones inspired. 9 out of 10 stars.
Awesome. Final thoughts. All right, that was fun to get back to some ancient stuff. I don't feel like I've hit stuff that old in a while, and it's too bad because I absolutely love ancient history. I love teaching and learn about it because there's so much to know and so much yet to know, with that. But it's so fascinating when you get further back in history and you get further away from our own cultures, and it becomes so different to try to think about that and how they lived and how they thought back then versus how we do now. But anyway, great job from BlueJay. I mean, they're now getting up into this video is just over 20 minutes now. And I know that's so hard with the animations and the writing and stuff, but I feel like they are, everyone that's involved with this. I don't know how many people get involved with this, but how good it's getting, like how much higher quality, better writing and developing a style. They're doing that very well. And I definitely consider them in that top tier now of funny animated historical content. They're right up there with all the ones that people talk about. So anyway, that was awesome. I asked a bunch of questions during the video, so let me know down below. And because there's plenty of the questions I had. I'd love for some input there. Thanks again to everybody that was suggesting this. The suggestions that get seen the most and reacted to the most for me are the ones that come over on the Discord server, because that's where they're nicely kept. So there's a link down below. You can join the Discord server, join our send video suggestions that way, and come hang out over there. All right. And with that, we'll see you all next time. Bye.